You can call me Cliff. It's been over a year. My laptop stopped running Minecraft for some reason, but I'm back, and I have for you today a 4x4 seamless and compact piston door. You just flick this lever, and it opens up pretty nicely. Flick it again, and it closes. And in this video today, I'm going to show you how to build it. But first, you need to get some supplies. So, you will need 80 blocks of your choice, 10 of which are part of the door frame, and 16 of which are part of the actual door itself, which are also part of the door frame when the door is open. Of course, you're going to need some more blocks than this if you want to, fill out the full door frame and decorate it. This is just the supplies you need to actually get the circuitry working. Yeah. In addition to the blocks, you also need 60 observers, 29 sticky pistons, 29 pieces of redstone, 20 redstone repeaters, 12 powered rails, 6 iron trapdoors. I think wooden trapdoors also work, but they should, but then people can mess with the circuitry by right-clicking on them, so iron trapdoors probably safer. Similarly, I think activator rails work instead of powered rails, but you just choose one or the other. And you also need 4 slabs of your choice, a block of redstone, and some way to activate it. In the tutorial, I'm going to use a lever, but, anything that gives in a lever-like signal, turns on when you click it and then turns off when you click it again. So, let's get started. So, you want to start by figuring out where you want to put your redstone door. So this is the hallway here where the door is going to be, and these chiseled quartz blocks are where the door pops out. And then there's a 5-block gap between the bottom of the hallway here and the floor here where we are going to start working. So, you start right under this corner of the door frame here, where you place your first block with a piece of redstone dust on top of that. That is your input block. You put your input into there. Then, you take 2 more blocks out like this, and a block up like that, and then blocks there, and there, and slabs there and there. Then you place redstone all along like this, and then redstone repeaters here on 3 ticks, here on 3 ticks, here on 4 ticks, and here on 4 ticks. Next, you place a trapdoor here, take an observer coming out of that into a block, put a block above the observer and a slab next to that, put powered rails, or activator rails, I think that works, on top of those 2. Then put observers facing up above these 2 pieces of redstone and these 2 repeaters, and an observer block facing into these powered rails. Now put solid blocks next to all of these observer blocks, with powered rails on top of these 3, and a repeater on 3 ticks on top of that one. Now place an observer block facing down right here. Next, place observers facing up on top of these 2 powered rails, and blocks there, there, and there. Now face an observer outwards there, and upwards right there, and an iron trapdoor there with an observer facing up into that. Now, place a block here with a repeater out on 2 ticks into an observer facing outwards with an observer under that facing downwards and an observer next to that on this side facing upwards. Place an iron trapdoor underneath that observer and an observer block right here facing upwards. Now repeat that on the other side. So you have a block there, a repeater on 2 ticks facing outwards, an observer facing outwards, an observer facing downwards, an observer facing upwards next to that with an iron trapdoor underneath it, and an observer facing upwards next to the trapdoor. And finally, for this step, have repeaters facing outwards there and there. Oh, and powered rails on top of those. If they connect to these powered rails, you may have to take these powered rails out to the sides in order to place them correctly. Next, place blocks here, 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 and here, and place observers facing upwards on top of these 2 rails and facing across towards the front next to them. Then, from these repeaters, lead out a line of blocks like this. Same thing on the other side. And place redstone on top of all of those blocks. Next, place iron trapdoors next to those blocks with observers facing forward leading out of the iron trapdoors. Now it's finally time to add pistons. So place pistons facing upwards in this hole. That's your double piston extender. And place sticky pistons across like this. They're all sticky pistons. And those will push in the blocks for the double piston extender. In fact, you can add those blocks now. I'm using glass, but that's whatever blocks your door is going to be made out of. You also have to place blocks here and here. They have to be solid blocks, but that's going to be part of the floor of your tunnel. Also, place pistons here, facing upwards, here facing towards the back, as well as on this side facing towards the back, and here facing across. Next, go over to where this piece of redstone goes up a level, and on top of that, place an observer block facing up, an observer block facing forwards out of that, a block on top of that observer block with a powered rail on top of that, and an observer block facing out of the powered rail. Now repeat that on the other side. Observer block facing up, observer block facing out, block on top of the observer block facing up, powered rail on top of that, and observer block facing away from the rail. Also on this side, place a powered rail on top of that observer block. Next, place sticky pistons going up along these sides, right in front of all of these observer blocks. These are the pistons that are going to push the side blocks in, which you can place in front of all of those pistons. Next, place solid blocks up here. These ones are going to be making up part of the roof of the tunnel, so that's why I'm using iron blocks for these. Place them in this formation here, then place some more solid blocks above that, in between that gap there, and back here. Now, place some observer blocks facing downwards into these ceiling blocks. And place some observer blocks facing across away from the 2 on the edge. Next, place redstone on top of these 2 blocks with repeaters facing out of that redstone on 3 ticks. And place repeaters facing away from these observer blocks on 1 tick. Then place 2 more observer blocks facing downwards into these last 2 ceiling blocks. Next, place a line of 6 observer blocks facing forwards right here on top of the 4 observer blocks facing downwards, and place regular blocks on top of these 2 observer blocks. Next, on top of these 2 repeaters, place observer blocks facing upwards, and place observer blocks facing downwards next on both sides of each of them. Now place redstone dust on top of the two observer blocks facing upwards, and place repeaters coming out of the redstone dust towards the middle, and repeaters facing towards the front on these two observer blocks and these two regular blocks. Next, place blocks on top of these three observer blocks and a slab on top of this one, and then place observer blocks facing downwards into that observer block and that observer block, with observer blocks facing forwards out of those two, and then place redstone on top of everything you just placed except for that observer block. Next, place an observer block on top of this rail, the extra one we placed on this side, and then place blocks on top and next to, towards the back of that observer block, and place a repeater on that block on 4 ticks. Place an observer block coming up off of that repeater, and then place an observer block facing in that direction right above this repeater, actually 2 blocks above, next to this redstone line. And speaking of that redstone line, another observer block facing into that redstone line there. And also a block of redstone on top of that repeater, directly above this time. Finally, let's add in the final sticky pistons. So place some double piston extenders down in that gap there, and some pistons across here, right above those door blocks, and place door blocks right across the top there. Now, go around and next to these pistons that we just placed, place sticky pistons facing upwards. And then place a sticky piston facing upwards into this observer block, a sticky piston here facing across into this observer block, and a sticky piston next to this slab facing across into this redstone block. And now you should be done. Just flick this lever, and the door should properly close, and then flick it again, and the door should open. So, thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and until next time, stay crafty.